Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about in the class is remediation and site assessments and just a little bit of everything at the end here, just to talk about the class and kind of finalize everything. One of the things that, and you can actually talk to Quinn about this, is phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessments. This is reports that can be written, work that can be done in order to be able to look at contaminated sites. So what is a phase 1 and a phase 2? Well, first of all, a phase 1, a site assessment or ESA, is the process by which a person of entity seeks to determine if a particular parcel of real estate is subject to recognized environmental conditions. So the person who currently owns the property is the one who has to clean up the site or wants to know about it, or if you're going to purchase the property. So say you are thinking about buying some property and you want to know what's the environmental history of the site. Was there any pollution that could have been there? What was going on? And so this is a very common thing to have happen during a real estate transaction. In there. And so in REC, present or likely absence of a hazardous substance or petroleum product on a property under consideration. So they look at the groundwater, the surface water, what was there. There's a historic. There is a set procedure for doing this, and I can upload the ASTM standard for doing a phase 1. And what you do at the phase 1, it's a very prescribed type of program. A lot of consulting firms will have a very set method for how they do it and how the report will look. They look at prior real estate transactions. Lenders provide loan to the property. They will look, this is also done when a property owner wants to know the history of it, the property is used to change or rezone, or when I apply for grant money or government loans in order to do something on it. So where a fair one performed, where an old gas station is. So like somewhere like Walgreens is one of the largest owners of polluted gasoline stations in the United States. Well, why? Because old abandoned gas stations are unusually popular corners, and those are usually places that Walgreens wants to put a pharmacy. And so a lot of Walgreens has a very large environmental firm. So they keep it going and they do a lot of work. Sometimes they'll shut down. I've had students talk about them shutting down Walgreens and then like taking little drill rigs into the center of the store to do a core in the center. A lot of times their shrubberies around the outside edges are filled with monitoring wells. So it's a common thing for these. If you're going to buy old, what are called brownfields zones, where brownfields are where there is old buildings. So it's usually made of brick and it's old brown zones, brownfields. We have one here in DeKalb. They're all over the place. Those are areas in which there was potential pollution. You can look at agricultural land, apartment dwellings. It could be anything, shopping centers, anything like that. So like I said, I can send you guys the ASTM standard. I can upload that to Blackboard. And again, like I said, these things are what goes into it. And this is, every consulting firm has their own format for the way this will look. But it's a very common job for people to do. And it's a lot of looking up databases, looking up things as to what was priorly done there. Examples of this, you might find old drums were there, leaking. There could have been hazardous. They could have had transformers with PCBs located in the area. So these are the kind of examples of what you would find. You might find old underground storage tanks, some vents, some above ground storage tanks and basements and stuff. So a lot of things that can go inside of there. Phase 1 with historic. So any historic site, this orchard used historic lead, arsenic pesticides. So knowing that was always important. This rail yard that's abandoned now used PCBs on the oils on there. So you have to look at the historic sites. And then you go and assess it, which is our phase 2, where you actually go out and install monitoring wells. You remove the underground storage tanks. You actually are doing an investigation. After you do the phase 1, you can get to a phase 2, where then you can look at the site. So the next steps are part of phase 2, which is performed to address whether issues in an attempt to provide a clean report. Like, is there any environmental problems? And so going out there. Again, here's the ASTM number. I'll put it up on Blackboard. And this one, you actually are doing the site investigation. You're doing soil samples, water samples. You might install monitoring wells. You'll survey in drums. You'll do tank pulls, you'll look at the drums on the site, and then you also might put in some risk assessments. So you might do some risk and remediation to address concerns at the site. You may say, okay, these are the ways that we need to, and you would recommend remedial techniques. And that'll be our next section.